Kat Timpf is a comedian, a libertarian commentator, co-host of Gutfeld on the Fox News channel weeknights at 10, author of the New York Times bestseller, You Can't Joke About That, Why Everything is Funny, Nothing is Sacred, and We're All in This Together. And now Kat is back with a brand new book. It's available now wherever you get your books. It's called I Used to Like You Until How Binary Thinking Divides Us. It's available on Amazon, of course, all the bookstores. Kat Timpf is joining me now on the Scott Sand Show. How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
Terrific. Congratulations on your second book, another bestseller on the way for you.
Thank you so much.
So you just got off this big tour, and I'm sorry, I hate that I missed you down, and I think Cincinnati was your closest date to me. But did you just get bored on the road? Is that why you started writing again?
So I did write this book mostly on the road, actually. And the reason is because I was inspired by the things I was seeing on the road to write this book. I went all over the country for my last tour. I'm doing it again, obviously, now. But I really realized we really do have a lot more in common than I think politicians and the media kind of want us to think that we do. And I had that hunch, and the more research I did, the more that it really backed that up. And the sad thing is we lose out on a lot. We fight each other off, but the people in power over us, they gain a lot. They're able to kind of, when we demonize each other, they're really able to convince us to willingly give up our own rights. So I thought this was a very important book to write, especially in a very highly politically charged time like right now.
We are certainly divided right now. The book is I Used to Like You Until How Binary Thinking Divides Us. And I think you're right to a certain extent. I think a lot of people, both in the media and certainly leading political parties, want to keep us divided and really like pick the scab of the things that are most controversial that divide us.
Yeah, I think that they really absolutely do. And I think that it's a real shame when it starts to impact your personal relationships with people. I mean, I personally write about in this book, and I know this, and I'm sure you've gone through this, and everyone, sadly, I think has gone through this at this point, where you've maybe lost friends or had relationships become more complicated or difficult on a personal level because of your political beliefs. Where I think it's sad and it's true that politics makes us fight with people we actually know in our real life over a lot of the time people who don't even know we exist at all. I'm not alone in this, sadly. I think that this is a large, massive problem. But I've lost friends at times because of my political beliefs. Or even because of, people don't want to be seen with me, or boyfriends want to be seen with me just because I work at Fox. And it sounds crazy, and I think it is, and it makes such little sense, but it's not an uncommon story. And unfortunately, I think politics, and this is pathetic sounding, but it's true, can make us fight with people we actually know on behalf of these politicians who don't even know we exist.
And don't even care we exist.
Don't even care. And I think that, if you let one single viewpoint or difference or association be like who you voted for, be enough to write off a person entirely, you could be missing so much else about that person. Or you could connect with that person on something.
I totally understand what you're saying, because I'm a single man, Kat. Maybe you have some single girlfriends, but I am a single man and got back on dating apps, which, by the way, is an absolutely miserable place to exist. But some of the profiles of women will be like, swipe left if you support Trump. Or, you know what? I actually enjoy hanging out and having conversations with people I don't agree with on everything. What's the point of having a conversation if it's just going to be an echo chamber? That doesn't make any sense. Some of my best friends are uber liberal, and we get along great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm an independent politically, so I have friends all over the place, right? I have friends who are very left-wing. I work at Fox, obviously, so I have friends who are conservative, friends who are big Trump supporters. My own husband is more conservative than I am, and he's my favorite person in the world. So
well, that's good.
I just think that, one thing about it is that a lot of people get a moral high ground from simply belonging to a political party. And that can be really hard to give up because you get to feel this moral high ground without ever actually having to do anything at all, right? If you're just good, the other side is bad, you're good just by virtue of not being on the other side. And there's research I write about in the book, and this is not surprising, but often this moral outrage is rooted more in self-interest than it actually is altruism. That can be hard to give up and hard to acknowledge, but that's what the research shows, and that's what my own life has kind of backed that up too.
And the extremes really dominate the political makeup of our country right now. And it's how they make money, first of all, on the extremes, and it's how they control Washington, unfortunately.
Yeah, we are very divided, but still the level of division that we see being portrayed. And I know I work in the media, right? I write about that in the book too. Media, politicians, even people around us, it's actually inaccurate. There's research that I write about in this book that backs up the fact that there are huge gaps in the way we perceive each other and in the way what the reality of that is. For example, there are huge gaps in the number of people who have quote unquote extreme beliefs on the other side, and the people on the other side that think that other side holds those beliefs. And, people are so afraid, I believe, and not wrongfully so because of what we've been talking about in this conversation, of being ostracized by their team, that if they have a belief that's like, I don't know about that, or maybe that's a little too far, or maybe I don't know if I'd want this for my kid, my family. People are afraid to say that because they don't want to be ostracized by their team. And often their team will ostracize them. So these sadly are not unfounded fears.
Right.
But we wind up with this society where people are walking around thinking people believe or really want these things that people actually don't feel that way at all.
We're talking to Kat Timpf, therealkattimpf.com. The book is, I used to like you until how binary thinking divides us. It's out. Your first book, You Can't Joke About That, which we talked about last time you were on, was very personal. Is this all about politics and psychology in the world today and how divided we are, but we're really not? Or is it also personal like your first book?
It's exactly like the first book, where it makes the point and has research, but there's also a lot of very deeply personal stories in it. So it's like partial memoir, personal stories, partial research. I would say the split is very similar to that of the last book. People were wondering, Kat, did you give up all your stories in the first book? And sadly, no. There's even more stories in this one that I'm nervous about the book coming out and some of the stuff being out there. But I know people, if they're familiar with chapter 5 of the last book, they'd be like, how could you possibly be embarrassed by anything? But
right.
I think honestly that that is by design for me too, because I think vulnerability is a huge way out of this mess. Where if we need to see each other as human, we got to be willing to show each other we are human. So that's what I sort of did with this book. And a lot of the stories are, of course, outlandish, funny, and all that kind of stuff too.
I'm glad you brought up vulnerability because I saw you on Gutfeld a couple of weeks ago when you announced the new book. And you were talking about, because obviously Gutfeld is going to talk about the cover photo of you, naked, surrounded by hate mail. And you mentioned then that it's really not about being sexy or seductive, although, I'm a guy and you are, but that's beside the point. It's about vulnerability. And I think that we're not going to get to the problem of the divisiveness in our country until we're vulnerable with one another and honest with one another.
Absolutely. And that was the point of it, vulnerability in the face of hatred, being covered with this hate mail. There have been times where I've had people come after me, and there's some people on Twitter who just hate me no matter what I do or say. Like some people, the same people will say, they'll get mad at me over something. I'll be like, oh, actually, Greg's the one who said that. But there have been people where they've been so cruel, and I've just they follow me and I popped into their DMs and been like, hey, that really hurt my feelings. And they're just like, what? I'm so sorry. It never occurred to them that I was a human being and not just a figure.
She's real. It's not anime.
Yeah, exactly. She's a figure on our screen. And so, I think that we have to be willing to kind of show a little humanity to each other. It can be hard, right? It can be embarrassing. But, well, no, actually that makes you feel like that, that hurt my feelings. Sometimes people will be like, I don't care, grow up. And it's like, okay, well, you're beyond hope, right? But sometimes people will be, say, oh, I didn't think of it that way or this or that. Because also, I write another chapter in this book about mental health, right? Where I think we've never talked more openly about the importance of mental health and paid it more lip service than we do now. We've also never been less charitable to a person going through a mental health crisis or making a mistake. So it really is no wonder, I think, that people aren't happy. People are going through mental health issues despite paying all this lip service to that. Because we're so willing to just cancel a person or write them off if something that they do or say when they're going through something happens to get a little ugly, which it almost always does. Someone going through something isn't as pretty as, the colors they choose for the aesthetically pleasing awareness graphics. Well, when they discuss these things.
And so much of our mental health is now affected by social media as well, which
yes.
I talk about the dating pools and the dating apps being accessible. Social media can certainly be as well.
Yeah, it takes away the humanity of a person. It really does. Some of the things people say to me, it's astounding. It's astounding because I watch a lot of TV because I'm so involved in, politics and all this stuff. I like to watch reality TV when I'm on the treadmill, kind of just numb, brainless stuff.
Right.
And I'll admit, I have the people on the shows that I like and the ones that I don't like, but I never then take that step, better let them know.
No.
I'm going to get on my computer and tell the ones I don't like that I don't like them, and also say that they think that they're ugly and that it's just I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. But I also think, going back to the theme of the book, that I'm not alone in this. Obviously, everyone who's on TV deals with this, and people who even aren't on TV deal with this. But I think it can make people even less likely to want to speak the truth, because there have been, or what they really believe. Because as someone, I'm libertarian. I'm for very small L libertarian. I'm not a member of the Libertarian Party. I'm independent, but I believe in the smallest government possible.
Right.
So that
Amen.
being said. Well, right. But that being said, sometimes when I'll be on Fox, there will be a story where what I have to say, because of my small government beliefs, means that I disagree with something Trump said, or I disagree with something that the Republic, and I know it won't be popular with the audience, but I'm still going to say it because I really believe that we are, in danger of losing our freedoms in this country. And that's more important to me than people being mean to me, and what's the point of having a platform for the platform's sake. But I understand that it's a lot harder because I know that not only people are going to disagree, but I'm going to hear about it.
Right.
And the things I'm going to hear are going to go way beyond, I disagree with what you said. It's going to be about my appearance. It's going to attack my character. It's going to get nasty. But I think that some people at some times can be swayed by that and not wanting to go through all that because of all the hate they'll have to actually see, which wasn't a thing in the past.
They may not want to speak up, and I totally understand. I totally relate. I'm a conservative talk radio host, but there are times where I've disagreed with Donald Trump, and the backlash of saying anything is huge at times, depending on how big your disagreement is.
Right, you're a communist. If I'm a communist, I'm a terrible communist. I mean, my guiding principle is always smaller government across the board. That's my guiding principle.
Smaller government, and I want to make money. I'm a horrible communist.
Yes, absolutely. And what's interesting is I found sometimes I can have more civil conversations with a straight up socialist. I have a friend who's straight up, socialist, right? About politics that are more respectful, because at least what he diagnoses, or what I diagnose as the problem in a lot of cases, he sees as a solution. So you don't get much more opposite than that. But at least he's willing to challenge the system of things. I think that a lot of our problems now are not that we need more moderates, or that people are too passionate about the issues. It's that I think people are too passionate about the party, regardless of all principles or regardless of all issues. I think that's where things can get hostile, and that's where things can get, quite frankly, really stupid, because it's what are we even talking about anymore? I
love that. The new book is I Used to Like You Until, How Binary Thinking Divided Us. Kat Timpf, you can pre-order or order it now, therealkattimpf.com. Just to kind of peel back the curtain on this, Kat and I are actually having a conversation about a week or two before the book's actual release. So I'm gonna ask you to gaze into the crystal ball a little bit. Do you think that this partisanship, this divide, will ease or get any better after November, after the election?
I think that it'll be after the election, as it always is after an election, it'll be more acceptable. Well, first, no. First, whoever loses is going to say, blame everyone who voted for the other side for ruining the country. That's going to go on for a couple of months. So let's say Trump wins. Every Democrat in your life is going to, anyone who voted for Trump, you're an evil person who just destroyed the country. That's going to go on for a few months. But then that'll kind of fizzle out after a while. Again, that's sad, because that's, as someone who's, thinks independently, it's like, guys, like this is pathetic. But I think that after that, it usually becomes a little more acceptable when we're not in the heat of the election to criticize the leaders, because it's not like, oh, we're game time, we're trying to win this game. And I think things will get a little easier, but they're going to get worse before they get better, sadly.
I hope so. TheRealKatTimpf.com. Order the book now. I Used to Like You Until: How Binary Thinking Divides Us. Kat, I'm a big fan. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.